Welcome to Codex, a history of video games. My name is Tyler Osby.
And I'm Mike Coletta.
And this week is our last episode on The Legend of Zelda. What part is this? Part 7?
This is part 7. Yeah,
Dang.
Part 7. We really hit it hard with Legend of Zelda.
Sure did. Cool. Well, where are we at?
Okay. So we are going to talk today about A Link Between Worlds and Triforce Heroes.
Okay.
And that would bring us right up to Breath of the Wild. I don't think Breath of the Wild is history at this point.
No, not yet.
It's very
It will
prevalent.
be, though.
People still play it a lot. Yeah, it will be when Breath of the Wild 2 comes out. And then we can have an episode where Tyler and I fanboy about Breath of the Wild. But until then, we're going to stick with A Link Between Worlds and Triforce Heroes, both of which are exclusive to the Nintendo 3DS console. So they were not released on any other console. But without further ado, it's time for A Link Between Worlds. Grime facts. Did you see the echo I did there? Was
Yeah,
that good?
crime facts.
Thanks. I thought it was good. Okay, so just like almost every single other Zelda game, this is done by the Nintendo EAD, the Entertainment Analysis and Development Division. It was released for the Nintendo 3DS in Europe on November 22nd, 2013, North America on the 22nd, Australia on the 23rd, and believe it or not, Japan got this game last on December 26th, 2013.
A whole month late. That's crazy.
Yeah, it seems very, very strange. So this is only on the 3DS, as I said before. They didn't have any sort of number of copies sold, but according to VGCharts with a Z.com, Nintendo shipped 4,160,000 units of this game. You can still buy this game new on Amazon, so I think it sold well, but certainly isn't like rare to find or anything like that. It's an action-adventure game. And awards, accolades, or groundbreaking achievement, there were a lot for A Link Between Worlds. I am going to skip the nominations and just talk about wins. Okay, this is if you're not first, you're last scenario for A Link Between Worlds. Otherwise, we'd be here all day. So, first thing it won, the 14th Annual Game Developers' Choice Awards. It won Best Mobile Game. The 17th Annual DICE Awards. It won Handheld Game of the Year. Famitsu Awards 2013. It won the Excellence Award. Game Informer's Best of 2013. The Best 3DS Exclusive, which seems like a very, very distinct category. GameSpot's Game of the Year 2013 Award. The 3DS Game of the Year. And the Overall Game of the Year.
Dang.
It's pretty big. Giant Bomb's 2013 Game of the Year Awards. It won Best Music. IGN's Best of 2013, it won 4 awards. Best 3DS Action Adventure Game, Best 3DS Game, Best 3DS Music, and Best Overall Music. Nintendo Life Staff Awards 2013, the 3DS Retail First Party Game of the Year. These are getting ridiculous, I think, with the distinctions. It also won the Overall 3DS Game of the Year for that group. Official Nintendo Magazine Award 3DS Game of the Year and Best Audio. And then Spike's VGX Awards 2013, it won Best Handheld Game.
Dang,
it also
that's a
got
lot of
nominated
awards.
for like 10 more. Yeah, there was so many. So average time to complete, according to howtobeat.com, is 16 to 23 hours, based on if you're either a main story only kind of person or I'm going to complete no life this game. Metacritic score is a 91 out of 100. Fun fact, this is the second best rated game on the 3DS on Metacritic. And you know what got first? Fire
What?
Emblem Awakening, one of my favorite games that I played and beat this year. Feels
Nice.
good. All right, so for Zeldas, as you know, we have a new Grime Fact category, and that is, where is this chronologically? So this is in the Hero is Defeated timeline. So if you're just joining us, Link did not defeat Ganon in Ocarina of Time in this timeline. There is no child or adult branching timelines. It's just one, so it's slightly less confusing. Game-wise, A Link Between Worlds takes place as a direct sequel to Oracle of Seasons and Oracle of Ages, and a direct prequel to the second game we talk about today, Triforce Heroes. But it's even more confusing because the developers of the game and Nintendo consider this to be a sequel to A Link to the Past.
Yeah, that's what I thought it was.
Yeah, it's a sequel to The Link of the Past, but chronologically speaking, Oracle of Seasons and Ages is between A Link to the Past and A Link Between Worlds.
Gotcha.
So just when you thought it couldn't get any more scatterbrained, it just keeps on going. So This game had some stops and starts to development, mostly because other Nintendo projects that were going on at the time. So in late 2009, The Legend of Zelda Spirit Tracks for the Nintendo DS is now done. Almost everyone on that team has been assigned to work on Skyward Sword, so only 3 members of the original Spirit Tracks team were assigned to work on the new handheld Zelda game. So, for some reason, Wikipedia only identifies 2 of the 3 team members. So we have Hiromasa Shikata and Shira Mori. Both Shikata and Mori wanted to have the new Zelda game based around the theme of, quote, communication, whatever that means. My guess is you're blowing into more microphones.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
So they worked on this for 6 months, presented it to Shigeru Miyamoto, our hero, and he was like, no, this is an outdated concept. You got to rethink it. Pretty much shut him down. So,
can you imagine working for 6 months on something, going to present it to Miyamoto, and he just says no?
Oh, it would hurt my feelings so bad.
Oof.
Couldn't handle it. So then, Shikata then proposed the idea of Link having the ability to enter and merge into walls. So one day later, Mori had made and created an initial prototype to demonstrate the feature. And once they saw it, ideas just started flooding in about all the things they could do with this. So they found their unique mechanic that every Zelda game needs. As you all know, we have to have one new unique game mechanic. If you've never seen or played this game, the basic idea is that Link transforms from a 3D character to a 2D character, enters walls, and then you can kind of move around corners that way to get to places you couldn't previously reach. It kind of goes into a platforming mode, if I recall, when you're 2D, right, Tyler?
I don't know if I'd call it platforming. I feel like you really just move from it. It's really just a transportation mechanism from getting from one 3D area to another, but it's been a while since I played it, so I could be wrong.
I mean, it looks like a platformer, though. You just don't jump, I guess. Okay. So, important to note about development also at this time, chronologically, Mori and Shikata both thought this game would be in the same timeline and design of Spirit Tracks and Phantom Hourglass. It wasn't until October 2010 that Miyamoto saw the prototype again and then approved the new concept. But within 2 weeks of entering production, finally they're going to make this game. Those 3 core members were moved to work on Nintendo Wii U games, and then development just fully stopped.
Oof,
on
bummer.
A Link Between Worlds. Yeah. So then we get a timeline jump to November 2011. Skyward Sword is out to huge fanfare, and the Zelda series producer, Eiji Aonuma, our hero, who's worked on every single Zelda game we've really been talking about over the last 3 episodes, began thinking about his next project for Zelda. So while Nintendo had released a remake of Ocarina of Time for the 3DS, there was a high demand for an original Zelda game on the 3DS. The hype train was getting ready to leave the station, essentially. So,
oh yeah, all aboard.
All aboard, but not Spirit Tracks. We're not doing the train game again. We're doing a different one. Okay, so Aonuma chose to revisit the idea of Link entering walls. But Shikata and Mori were working on those Wii U games, so they just didn't get to work on it at all. They were just essentially left behind to work on the Wii U launch games, and Aonuma took the whole project over. And this, by the way, was 13 months break between them having the idea to enter walls and then them finally going, okay, we're going to make this game finally. Kentaro Tominaga was brought onto the team to continue kind of where Shikata had left off, and he's the one that actually kind of refined the system and made entering the walls really, really smooth and a clean transition. And they presented the idea to Miyamoto in May 2012. So Tominaga planned to create a bunch of small dungeons using the mechanic, but Miyamoto criticized this. And he suggested basing the game actually on A Link to the Past. It was his idea to let's go back to the Link to the Past world and kind of work on this now. Aonuma proposed combining the wall entering mechanic with the top-down perspective and the landforms and that whole style of A Link to the Past.
Plus, it kind of gives you an overworld map too that you don't really have to make from scratch, which is kind of nice.
Yeah, which is very nice. There were some issues with that overworld map, which we're going to talk about in a bit, but Aonuma felt that the shift in perspective when entering a wall would be complemented a lot by those 3D capabilities, the stereoscopic 3D that the 3DS used. And so they converted the 2-dimensional landforms of A Link to the Past into 3-dimensional landforms. And the team actually placed Link into the setting with the wall entry mechanic just to test the feature. and it worked, and they really liked it.
Nice.
So they actually moved on. Like, development really hit full swing in July 2012. And as the development team were working on this, they did have some technical difficulties, which I thought were important to mention. First, so A Link to the Past is a true top-down game. You see the top of Link's head. If they were going to make this world all 3D and nice, they realized they actually had to put it in an angle so you could actually see everything that you wanted to see. So that was the first problem they solved. They also wanted the game to run at 60 frames per second. The problem was the stylus could only run at 30 frames per second, so the game looked great. And then the minute you tried to drag an item from your inventory, it looked really sluggish, like the game was just chugging along.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, because the screen must only be able to pull at like 30 hertz or something.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I wouldn't have even
really
thought
weird.
of that.
I wouldn't have either. I mean, the 3DS was very new at the time. I remember being super excited about it. And like, yeah, I think that it would have looked really strange. So the whole game ran at 30 frames per second, essentially. So it would match the stylus movement. So everything looked smooth and nothing looked sluggish. Link looking like a mural when they made the concept art for the game actually is what inspired the villain Yuga. They, like most things Nintendo does, they have all the gameplay mechanics first and the story comes after that. So Yuga can transform himself and other people into paintings and is the main villain in A Link Between Worlds. And that idea only happened because they decided to have Link go into walls first. They actually also changed the entire progression of Zelda with A Link Between Worlds. And this is actually what makes me really want to play this game. Like, I watched a bunch of reviews of it, and I watched as much gameplay footage as I could without spoiling anything, because I want to play it. But usually in a Zelda game, you go to a dungeon, you get a new item, and that new item allows you to move on to the next area. It's pretty linear, even though it feels open world. It's pretty linear. The team was like, this is kind of boring. We've done this so many times. So they added a mechanic in A Link Between Worlds where you can rent or purchase items using rupees, which is great because rupees now actually mean something, which I think is nice. Yeah. In Zelda games before, I feel like you would never really use rupees.
Yeah.
Did you?
I didn't. Say that again?
Would you ever use rupees in a Zelda game?
No, I guess there kind of comes to a point where they are not useful. In Twilight Princess, you can get a tunic later on in the game that it makes you like super powerful, but it just drains your rupees the whole time. Like, that was kind of the best use for rupees in that game, probably. But I was going to say about the item system. I liked the idea of it. What it ended up feeling like for me was I never felt like I was gaining in power as I was moving through the game, because all of the dungeons had to be completable with their one item, and they couldn't count on you having any items from any other dungeons. So it was just go do the dungeons in any order, but you're not actually getting stronger in between dungeons. So there wasn't this like piling on effect of feeling like by the end, like, oh man, I'm this awesome, powerful person with all these great items. It was just like you had the item for the one dungeon you needed, which I don't hate the idea as a whole, but it didn't work out for me the way I think they'd hoped it did.
I know. I mean, that's actually a really good note, because I know a lot of people, for example, are like going to Breath of the Wild real quick, do not like Breath of the Wild because your items keep breaking.
Yeah.
You know, like they put that system in there so you would try out all the weapons, and then people just get really annoyed when your item breaks. So they try out new things. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't work. And that's good to know, because I had no idea. And I want to play the game, but maybe that might be something I don't enjoy. So
it's good. It's still worth playing. Like, the dungeons are all still fun. Like, it still feels like a fun Zelda game. It's just that aspect of going through the dungeons and slowly gaining power is just not there.
You don't feel like the powerful hero you're supposed to feel like. I get it. All right. So another way that this is pretty cool, and you can see how this is even though it's not a chronological sequel to A Link to the Past, it's a direct sequel to A Link to the Past. The US name of the game is called The Legend of Zelda: A Link Between Worlds, but in Japan, the game is called The Legend of Zelda: Triforce of the Gods 2, and if you recall, A Link to the Past in Japan is called A Legend of Zelda: A Triforce of the Gods. So it's definitely like clearly a sequel in Japan. Everyone in Japan knows what's going on. We just don't, because we're in the North America.
Because we can't make that connection between A Link Between Worlds and A Link to the Past.
No, because as you know, as we've said in the past, Nintendo thinks that American players are dumb and can't play games well. So there you go. All right. let's talk about the plot a little bit of this game. So Link, this time, is an apprentice of a blacksmith. And they go to deliver a sword to the captain of Hyrule Castle, only to find Yuga, who is a mysterious sorcerer who transforms the descendant of one of the 7 sages, Ceres, into a painting. You get knocked out during the fight as Link, and then a merchant named RoccoW finds you and then gives you a bracelet in exchange for him being allowed to stay in your home. Essentially, like, he pays you rent in a powerful item, which is kind of cool. You then go report to Princess Zelda, who gives you the Pendant of Courage and tells you need to seek out the other pendants of power and wisdom to get the Master Sword, so that way you can defeat Yuga. Yuga turns a bunch of people into a painting, things get crazy, but because you have that sweet bracelet, when you try to get turned into a painting, now you can go between worlds. You are the link between worlds.
Ooh.
Yeah. Pretty much, it's your standard Link fare. You got to get the Master Ford. You got to rescue the Master Sword. You don't need a Master Truck. You don't need that fancy Ford truck you always wanted, Link. Master Sword. You need to find and rescue the 7 sages, and then you need to defeat Yuga. Those are your big objectives in the game. Overall, this game was really well received. As you heard in the Grime Facts, it got a bunch of awards, had high praise from critics. I'm going to say the only way you can play this game, unfortunately, is to play it on a 3DS or a 2DS. I really want to play it. I will probably get it for my 2DS because I bought that thing like 2 years ago and I want to make sure I use it. So that's one of the reasons why. But did you, like, overall, Tyler, like this game?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I had a lot of fun with it. I played it start to finish. Really, really enjoyed it. Very fun. The dungeons are great. The overworld is cool because it's the same as the Link to the Past overworld. Yeah, I remember liking it. I mean, I played it when it first came out, so that was a while ago now. But yeah, I remember enjoying it a lot.
Nice. Good to know. Check it out. It has the Codex seal of approval. That's not a thing until this episode, but now it is.
Maybe we just made that up.
We really did. So next we're going to talk about The Legend of Zelda Tri-Force Heroes. And this game is very different, which I will explain in a moment. But let's go through the Grime Facts first. Nintendo EAD once again made this game. Only a 3DS title. Came out in Japan on October 22nd, 2015, in North America and Europe on October 23rd, and then in Australia on October 24th. It is Nintendo DS only. We do have sales data for this. It has sold 1.14 million copies worldwide by March 2016. I think that means it's sold more since then, most likely. It's an action-adventure game. I could not find any awards for this game, though, which is odd. But it did not have as good of a Metacritic score as the other one. It had a 73 out of 100. So it's good, but it's not great. If you want to go and beat the game, though, it'll take you 14 and a half hours to just beat the main story, or 52 hours. That's right. 52 hours to beat the game completionist style. 52 hours on a handheld is a lot, but there is a very specific reason for that. So, chronology-wise, we are in the hero ends defeated timeline, directly after the events of A Link Between Worlds, and right before the 1986 original Legend of Zelda game, The Legend of Zelda. This is interesting that this is a prequel to the big one. So, before we talk about development, I think we need a little more context in this game. So while A Link Between Worlds is more of a traditional Zelda game, the big difference is being jumping into walls. Triforce Heroes is straight up meant to be played as a cooperative multiplayer game. Can you play it solo? You can. And when you play it solo, then this game shows its true colors, because this game is actually the spiritual successor to Eiji Aonuma's first game he ever directed, called Marvelous, Another Treasure Island, that was released in 1996 for the Super Famicom. Have you played this game, Tyler? Triforce
Never even
Heroes?
heard of it until right now.
Oh, okay. So Triforce Heroes is a spiritual successor to Marvelous, Another Treasure Island. In Marvelous, you control 3 boys across the land from a bird's eye view, and you have a command window, and you can tell each one where to go and what to do. And it's kind of a collecting game, essentially. You do things like talk to people, pick up objects, with the goal being you want to collect these stamps. But there's so much other stuff to collect along the way. The reason that Triforce Heroes is considered a spiritual successor to Marvelous, Another Treasure Island, is once again, you have 3 players, in this case, Links, 3 different Links, all wearing different colored tunics. And if you're in single player mode, you can issue them commands, just like in Marvelous. Then, You can also collect all sorts of stuff in Triforce Heroes. You can collect costumes, paper dolls, all sorts of collectibles. The costumes are cool because they give you like specific powers. So if you have like the Boomeranger costume, you can throw a giant version of the boomerang. If you wear Zelda's dress, it's called the Legendary Dress, you get extra hearts. But yeah, this game is a Zelda game, but still very different from your typical Zelda game. And you can play it in single player, or you can play it where each person is a different Link, which is, I think, the way you want to go, because it's more fun to play with your friends and to solve your puzzles with your friends. So, in Triforce Heroes, you solve puzzles mostly similar to normal Zelda games as a group or by yourself. But the key mechanic, because once again, every Zelda game has to have a key mechanic, is you can do a totem stack, where you essentially stack 3 Links on top of each other on your shoulders, put on a giant trench coat, and rent R-rated movies. No,
I was just going to make a Vincent Adultman joke. You beat me to it.
But you actually, so you stack your 3 3 Links in a trench coat, and then, man, people would get really mad at me if I didn't correct myself on that and said 3 Zeldas, wouldn't they? Your 3 Links stack on top of each other, and you can like do different actions to solve puzzles. So you can like throw the top person onto a higher elevation. Some enemies you can only attack as that 3rd level Link, and then you can also get thrown across gaps. So it's like a cool game mechanic that makes it so you can solve more puzzles as a team. It's cooperative gameplay. Another game mechanic also involves collecting items in order to craft those outfits that give you really good abilities. And this is kind of also very Marvelous and other Treasure Island inspired, because the reason this game takes 52 hours to beat is there is so much stuff to collect if you want it and to craft. One final important gameplay note, though, too, is you all share one heart meter, which I think is pretty cool. So if you have a friend that gets hit a lot, you're all going to die a lot. So you can definitely get mad at people, or you can grieve your friends if you want to. Fun. You also have life fairies, like you have a number of lives, and I'll kind of get to why you have a number of lives in a second. But the development of this game was actually, again, inspired partially by Shigeru Miyamoto's love of the Four Swords Adventures games, but also director Hiromasa Shikada wanted to kind of experiment with those new gameplay elements that were introduced in Spirit Tracks and Phantom Hourglass, but this time make it multiplayer. So, like, you actually control some of those phantoms from Phantom Hourglass and Spirit Tracks as a group in this game to solve puzzles and stuff.
Nice.
One very careful design choice, though, that they really considered during the development of this game is they were very concerned about Link wearing a dress, apparently. And they actually talked to like experts in the US and Japan, pretty much all over the world, to kind of get like cultural ideas about it. And now I feel like, even though this was only 5 years ago, now having Link wear a dress, no one cares, but even 5 years ago, Nintendo was concerned about it, but they learned it was no big deal and they did it anyway, which is good. It doesn't matter. And that dress is super important. Yeah. That dress is super important because it gives you a bunch more hearts, and if you're sharing hearts with your buddy who keeps getting hit by moblins, then you're probably going to want those hearts. You know what I mean?
Yep.
So let's talk about the plot of this game. The plot's also super kooky and weird, and I love it. Triforce Heroes takes place in a land called Hytopia, a kingdom whose citizens are obsessed with fashion. Princess Styla holds a great power over Hytopia until a witch known as, quote, the Lady, curses her, forcing an unremovable brown jumpsuit upon her, which I think, if we all agree, if you're like on a fashion island, that's probably the worst you can have. Brown jumpsuits, are they ever in style? We'll never know.
Never.
King Tuft, Hytopia's ruler and Styla's father, is devastated by the curse and sends out a call for a hero who can lift it. So while many answer the call, the king believes the one true hero is the one who fulfills a prophecy that tells of 3 heroes coming together to form a totem pole. That's right. The totem pole stack mechanic is in story of the game. This hero is once again revealed to be Link, and the same hero who saved Hyrule and Lorule in A Link Between Worlds. So that's essentially the plot. Reception of this game is okay. There's some things about it that I personally think are kind of strange. This game has stages instead of it having like an overworld and dungeons.
Oh, you just like move straight through the dungeons?
There's 32 stages, so 32 puzzles essentially that you can solve. The one cool thing it does, though, is if you play the game in single player mode, the puzzles are slightly different than the co-op play. So if you play the game alone, when you play the game with your friends, you'll have like an idea of how to solve it, but it'll be different.
Oh, that's
neat.
cool. So it's
Yeah,
like it's like two different games then. So you can play it with your friends or without, and it's like there's a reason to play it both ways.
Yeah, exactly. There is a reason to play it both ways, so that you do have like a lot of hours of play there. You have like, so actually I'm skipping ahead, but one of the big critiques I watched on the videos, I watched the reviews of this game, is that there's not a lot of communication tools for online multiplayer. You have 8 emotes to choose from when you're in the game, but you can't talk to your friends unless you all agree to play in the same room. Also, there's like, as we all know on like Nintendo, now it's okay with the Switch app on phones, but there's no real way to talk to players on Nintendo Online, especially at this point. There was just no way. So it would have been really difficult. And then you would have had lag, as always, because lag's always a problem. So one other thing to note, and I kind of want to ask about this to the people that listen to us, our listeners, is if you've played this game, I want to know your thoughts on it. Because have you played Triforce Heroes, Tyler?
Not at all, no.
And I have never played Triforce Heroes. So if you are a listener to Codex and you have played Triforce Heroes, we want to hear from you. So email us at codexhistorypodcast@gmail.com. Overall, I think this is a fun game, and I think it would be cool to play, like if you, me, and someone else got together. But then you also got to find 3 friends in 2020 that all have 3DSs and all have copies of this game, which is, I think, a little bit difficult to do. Yeah, it's hard to do. But overall, I think it's a neat idea, and that's actually it. We did our history on all the Zeldas up to this date. Do I want to talk about Breath of the Wild? Always. But I feel weird doing a history on a game that is still very relevant and people play it all the time. And the only thing Tyler and I want to say is Eventide Island is the GOAT of video game levels. The greatest
I love Eventide Island. Oh, man.
Yep, that's the only thing I'm going to say about Breath of the Wild, because I know it's what you and I both think. Eventide Island.
Eventide Island is the biggest time that I just went off in a direction to see what was over there and got rewarded for it. So many times you in video games, especially open world ones, you're like, oh, I wonder what's over there. And you go over there and there's just nothing over there. And you spend a lot of time getting there. There's just nothing there. Eventide Island, like there was something there and there was a whole fun, like it was its own thing. It wasn't just, oh man, if you haven't done Eventide Island in Breath of the Wild, it's so fun.
It's so fun too, because it kind of builds on all the skills you've been playing up to that point too. So when you get there, you're like, oh, this is great. I don't want to spoil about what it is, but if you haven't played Breath of the Wild, just try to get to Eventide Island. Do it for us, okay?
Yep.
Do it for your best friends at the Codex History Podcast. But Tyler, what you been playing?
Oh man, I've actually been playing quite a few games this week. So we're on the World of Warcraft Shadowlands train. We both have finished the campaign now. There's still other like campaign stuff to do that sort of unlocks slowly over the weeks as it unravels. But we're in the end game now, both of us.
Where the friend
like
game
Avengers.
Is.
Yeah, we're in the end game now.
We're in the end game.
Yeah, I'm having fun with it. We still have several dungeons to play that we haven't played. The raid comes out next week. We probably won't be able to play it as soon as it comes out because it's going to be at normal difficulty, and I don't know if we'll have the eye level for it, and I don't know if we'll be able to find 10 cool people to play with. But the week after is when it hits Raid Finder, and we can play the easier version that's match made. And then maybe if we get cool people, we'll do the normal. Yeah, but I can't wait to do heroic dungeons with you. We're almost to the eye level. We can do heroic dungeons, and then mythic plus dungeons will be really fun too. Even when we can't raid, they're still a good. It's not the same thing as raiding, but they will feel sort of like the dungeons from Destiny a little bit. Although we will have already played through them. They'll have new mechanics and stuff. I'm very excited. Love World of Warcraft. I also finished up Call of Duty United Offensive because I had like 4 more levels on that just hanging out. I'm trying to clean up my Trello board a bit here now that we've shared the links around. So I'm trying to hit that backlog a little bit. So I finished United Offensive and I started Finest Hour, which is a console exclusive for Call of Duty game. It's like an expansion for the original Call of Duty, but it's only on console. So I'm playing the Xbox version of that. And I'm pretty close to the end. I'm on the last. There's like 3 different campaigns, I guess, in it, and I'm doing the last one now. It's okay. It feels like more Call of Duty, only the levels are smaller because it's on console, and it's fine. And then the last game that I'm playing is a game called A Way Out, which hit Game Pass as part of EA Play on Xbox. So it'll come to PC in a couple weeks when all that stuff from EA Play hits Game Pass on PC. A Way Out is like a co-op only game. You can only play it with another person online or local. And I've been playing that with Kelly, and it's really fun. You're like two guys busting out of prison. They have a lot of things in common. They've got some common enemies, so we're not done with it yet, so I don't know how it ends. But it's very story-driven, lots of quick-time events. It feels kind of like one of those Quantic Dream games like Detroit or Heavy Rain. Not a whole lot of choice going on, but it feels like that's sort of the same gameplay where you kind of walk around and do QuickTime events, and there's some driving sections, and there's a lot of gameplay variety, which has been really fun. I don't think it's very long either. Highly recommend it. It's part of Game Pass, so if you've got somebody you like playing games with, then play it. So yeah,
nice. I actually wanted to know about that game, and I think you just gave me a good Tyler review of that game.
Yeah,
and I
you should totally play it. And if you buy the game, what I thought was cool about it, and now that it's on Game Pass, this is less relevant, but like back when it first came out, because you have to play it co-op, only one person has to own the game. As long as one person owns the game, you can get anybody else in to join you. And I think that was a smart idea because you can only play it co-op. There is no like, I'll play by myself with the CPU controlling the other guy. Like, you can only play it with another person.
That's really cool. That's a really smart way to do it.
So they make it easy they make it easy to get another person in there. So I've been having a lot of fun with it. So yeah, what have you been playing?
Well, I've been with you, obviously, in World of Warcraft, as you said. I did a twofer, as in I finished 2 games in one night. So I beat the Zelda Link's Awakening remake on Friday night, and I immediately, I was on the last boss anyway. I didn't realize how close I was at the end. So I beat that, and then I turned it off, and then I immediately opened Firewatch, and in 1 4-hour sitting, just beat Firewatch.
Nice.
It's not very long. But it was really fun. I mean, I'm happy I played Firewatch. If you know the story, though, it's definitely one of those games that's not worth playing. Like, if you've watched a streamer play Firewatch, you've seen Firewatch.
Yeah, you don't need to play it yourself.
Yeah, that's the only bummer about it. I really enjoyed my experience with it, though, and I had a lot of fun. The one thing that I did notice that kind of irked me a little bit, and I'm noticing it more and more on my Switch, is there's a lot of, frame rate dips on Nintendo Switch, even in their own games. Like, Breath of the Wild has frame rate dips and stuff, which is kind of a bummer. So besides that, though, it's fine. I'm really tempted, by the way, Tyler, to get back on the Destiny train after I heard that the new raid is fun. But much like World of Warcraft, do I want to do all of that endgame shenanigans just to get to that raid is the question.
That's a good question. And you'd be splitting it between World of Warcraft and Destiny at this point. And those are 2 games that really want to be your only game,
Exactly. And I don't think I want to do that. So I'm going to stick to World of Warcraft because I'm having a good time. But
I'm tempted to go back. We'll go back to Destiny at some point, though, I think, especially after we've exhausted the World of Warcraft train. We'll get there.
Yeah, I'm kind of thinking when they re-release Vault of Glass is when I'll probably go back to Destiny too. So
yeah, I have a feeling we'll do the raid a couple of times in World of Warcraft. If we can get groups together to do it on harder difficulties, maybe we'll do that, but I have my doubts about that. And then we'll probably put it down until the next raid comes out, and we'll just go back and forth between that and Destiny for a little while. Yeah,
definitely. But I'm enjoying it. I'm also trying to clear my Trello, so I think next on my list it's going to be also I'm kind of trying to clear out games that are quicker to beat, or I'm part of the way through, so that way I can sit down and focus on The Witcher 3. Mike and Philly, you hearing this? You hearing this right now?
Finally.
Finally. So, but yeah, I think the next one, I might try to beat Borderlands 3 now that I'm kind of close. But then you and I have to play Halo 5 because I put that on my console so we can play that. So we can go through all the Halos before Halo Infinite comes out.
Yeah, I got to add that one to my Trello board. Back to it. I've
you
got a
can
long list of on-deck games that I have. I have a big vacation coming up soon around the holidays. So I'm trying to build out my list of games to try to get through.
You can copy my card and just put it on your Trello because I made the mission list already. Yeah, that's the best. So people were asking, I think Hassan asked on Discord, and I kind of wanted to reiterate it. If you want to use Trello to track your games like Tyler and I do, if you want that satisfying feeling of dragging something from one column to another, our Trellos are on Discord and set to public, and you can copy any of the cards on there so you can kind of see what format we use. And when I say format we use, I mean the format Tyler uses because I just directly stole his and did the same thing. So I'm telling you to steal from us, essentially, if you want to use Discord. You can also join Discord by clicking the pinned tweet at the top of my profile. My profile is at mecoletta on Twitter, MECOLETTA. You can also go to codexhistorypodcast@gmail.com and just ask us, and I'll send it to you. Tyler's Sneaker Elf on Twitter, at ELPH to end it instead of the normal elf spelling. Tyler, do you like to read our first email?
Yeah, I will read
It's our first and only email of the day.
Yeah, it's from Mo. He says, "Hey dudes, it's Mo. I'm bored at work, so here's a haiku. Codex, the podcast, always gives me warm fuzzies. Spider butts for life. That's all. Spider butts, Mo."
That's beautiful. That's beautiful. Do we snap? I don't know. Are we supposed to snap now? How does...
I guess so.
I guess that's how poetry works. All right. So we got a new review on Apple Podcasts that I am going to read right now. If I was a better podcaster, I would have this prepared and ready to go. But here we go. On Monday from Creature73L. I will be recommending this to everyone. 5 stars. Whether you're new to gaming history or are yourself an avid historian, you're going to enjoy these two and their calmingly nostalgic trip down the history of gaming. Thank you, Creature73L.
Thanks.
We appreciate you. And I think it's kind of a shorter episode this week because I didn't realize how close we were to ending Zelda. I was ready to go for the long haul this week, and I was like, oh, we only got 2 games left. There you go.
Oh, that's all right.
Hey, it's great. And I don't know what we're doing next week, so that's even better.
Me neither.
It's a mystery next week.
We'll figure it out.
So until then, Tyler, would you like to say bye to everyone before we go?
Sure. Goodbye, everyone.